I got a little TIG welding project going on, and this is just plain carbon steel. I'm going to be welding these end caps on here. But first, I need to clean. TIG welding can be a lot of fun, but it's not much fun for me if I'm welding over dirty metal. And even though I'm not really going to try to penetrate this thing all the way through 100%, you don't want to weld and suck rust into the puddle from the backside. So I'm cleaning it real nice with a flap disc, both pieces, back about a ½ inch or so, giving it a wipe with acetone before I even get the first tack weld on it. It'll go a lot better that way. I have 4 of these to weld. I'm tack welding them without any filler metal. They're a pretty decent fit up, pretty straight cuts. I'm just going to get a small tack here and there. Occasionally I'll use filler metal where I have a little small gap. I'll weld some of them with pulse, some of them without. The first one here, I'm going to go 50 pulses a second and 75% background just to see if I can get a little agitation on the puddle and see how it does. These don't really need any pulse. I'm just kind of experimenting because I wonder if just that slight agitation with the background set really high will kind of help. I'm using a Jazzy 10 Furic cup with about 25 CFH argon, probably about 5/8 to 3/4 stick out so that I can get the cup out of the way. We can film it. At 50 pulses a second, it almost looks like there's no pulse, and the camera doesn't pick it up that well, but you can kind of hear it buzzing in the background. It almost sounds like welding on alternating current. And I would say that just did okay. Put quite a bit of heat into the part, but that's because I had a really high background current. That's kind of the idea. There's a lot of applications for high-speed pulse, and I showed this in an earlier video about 39 pulses a second with 30% background, and that seems to work really well for welding on or near an edge if you have to do some edge build-up. This is not very thin, but it works really well on really thin material too, down as low as probably 30 thousandths or so. But this is just 11 gauge, and that high-speed pulse just kind of makes it stand up and instead of roll over the edges, which is good for edge build-up because that's what you're trying to do, is build it up. You don't necessarily want the edges of the puddle to wick over and round over a whole lot. And with high-speed pulse, it really helps in that regard. It just kind of makes the puddle stay where you put it. And here are the details and the settings on that weld if you care to pause it and try this yourself on something. Now I'm going to go to just 2 pulses a second. It's kind of hard to set on an analog dial machine like this, but a few little tries you can get it. Now 2 pulses a second, put a lot less heat into it, kind of made it look pretty nice, but it's kind of annoying to watch. You kind of have to dab filler metal every other pulse when you do that, at least I do. But it came out okay again. I'm going to flip this thing up and weld the next one in a horizontal position. I'm using an MK Cobra Turn positioner, and this is a strong hand wrist rest prop, and it's pretty daggum handy. It's a ARW16 if you're interested. I'm going to turn the pulse off for this one. I'm going to get some quick tack welds on it probably about every 4 inches or so, and then I'll weld it out. I'm intentionally trying not to fully penetrate this. I know I'm going to nip it here and there, but the more I penetrate, the more it's going to pull oxides in from the backside, and it's going to make the puddle all squirrely and wander around. So for what this is, full penetration is not a requirement. I'm just trying to hold a little bit of an upward angle on my tungsten. I'm trying not to come very far out of the puddle with the hot tip of that filler rod so that I keep it shielded with the argon coming out of the cup. And you'll see in just a minute how having this little wrist rest helps me get steady. I'm propping both hands on it, torch hand and filler wire hand. And it helps a lot in consistency when you're doing a joint like this. Like if you had 50 of these or 100 of these to do, you'd want them all to look nice. You'd want them to look kind of like they were done on a turntable and being real steady. Not only will you be less tired at the end of the day, but generally the welds will come out better. With it magnified like this, I'm really surprised at how much the tip of that rod was flopping around, even with the prop. So I need to work on that a little bit. Probably be better if I would aim for the top edge of the puddle here. I'm noticing now I'm feeding rod sort of at the bottom, not intentionally, but it's going to come out okay anyway, especially when you find out what these things are going to be. And I'll let you know in an upcoming video, so stay tuned for that.